Hey everyone, this is Kit Cabello's Hard Lens Media, and this is Perspective. I'm going to talk about something that's close to my heart. I am really happy to actually change the subject after yesterday's video talking about Joe Biden. I'm going to talk about third parties. And we here at Hard Lens Media, we've covered third parties since the beginning of 2017 throughout 2018, and it's really nice to be talking about them again during this 2020 election cycle. And speaking of which, recently on social media, nothing is confirmed yet, nothing's been signed yet, nothing's happening as of yet, so the story can change tomorrow or next week, who knows. But Jesse Ventura, former governor, has shared on social media, Twitter to be exact, that he might consider running as a third-party candidate. So I'm just going to read what he shared on social media. Okay. I've decided I'm going to test the waters. If I were going to run for president, the Green Party would be my first choice. I've endorsed the party and I'm testing the waters. To be clear, I haven't filed anything. I authorized a letter of interest that was sent on my behalf to the Greens, and I'm testing the waters for Green Party nomination. I'm an independent. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican because I know they're not the solution. This is something I agree with. Look, at this point, the two-party system, it only works for the top 1%. Big banks, Wall Street, the top 1%. That's it. The people who control everything. Basically, the ones who were bailed out with that recent stimulus package that Congress so graciously gave them. So, yeah, this is great. I'm excited to hear this. Now again, Jesse Ventura is just basically saying that he's testing the water. So nothing is certain, nothing has been confirmed yet. But I think we need to talk about third parties and the role that they can play in American politics. Because for too long, we've been stuck with this false choice of the Democrats and the Republicans. But at the end of the day, we see who their number one constituents are. Like I've said before, Wall Street executives, big banks, major corporations, lobbyists, the top 1%. These two parties that we have don't represent us. And like I've said on the show numerous times, our elected officials, be they in the United States Senate or in the United States House, 90% of the time, they're on the phone calling up their donors, asking for more money. Does that sound like a democracy to you? Does that sound like an elected official that's actually trying to work to make your life better? No. So let's talk about third parties and why we need them. Look, the rest the developed world, including other democracies, have a parliamentary system. Now, I'm not saying that their system is perfect, but in regards to choosing people that represent your values, Canada has multiple parties. Great Britain has multiple parties. The member nations of the European Union have multiple parties. Australia, Japan. I mean, at this point right now, we need to have a true parliamentary democracy in this country, because more and more Americans are identifying themselves as independents. In fact, recent polls are showing that 40% of Americans identify themselves as independents because they feel that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party don't represent their values. So, that's great. However, we have a messed up system, like I've reported before. Take, for example, to be on the ballot here in the state of Illinois, or at least how it was before, you need to have at least 25,000 individual signatures just to be recognized, plus an additional 25,000 signatures because those signatures could be thrown out. It's a horrible draconian system that we have. Now, quite recently, the Illinois Green Party and the Illinois Libertarian Party won a major lawsuit to where basically they don't have to worry about that for the time being. We actually talked about it in the previous episode last week on Hard Lens Media. Please check that out. So this is good news for third parties, at least here in the state of Illinois. But sadly, across the country, there is a whole system at the state level, at the county level, at the city level, at the federal level that prevents third parties from really, making their platform heard to the American people. And corporate media, well, they're not big fans of third parties. So let's rewind back the clocks a little bit, because I actually want to bring up a interview in which Jesse Ventura was on. This was in 2015, where he's talking about third parties. Check this video out.
But isn't that the problem here, that you may be an individual with a viewpoint that is not consistent with those two main political parties, but the only way you're going to get that heard is to join them?
No, I did it without joining them. I became the governor of Minnesota, and everybody said I couldn't win. I won. Why? I was allowed to debate. If you let a third or fourth entity into the debates, you will see the Democrats and Republicans fall because they've been in charge of this country for 150 years. And look at the debt we're in today. A child born today is $50,000 in debt when they takes its first breath, and it won't work for another 18 years probably. Now imagine if they ran their home budgets like that. They'd be street people. They've been in charge. How do they run from it? They've created this mess. They're responsible for it.
What about those people who are supporters of the two-party system who say, look, yes, we do have the two-party political system in the United States. It brings the United States stability, and it does accommodate a wide variety of political views.
Really? Gee, I guess it gives you one more choice than a dictatorship, huh?
But, I mean, that is the argument that is made by those who support the two-party system.
What, that they have one more choice than a dictatorship? That's not much.
But the fact that
You're telling me all people can be bottled into these two parties? Baloney. You know, take a look at the voter turnout. The last national election in the United States, 64% of the people didn't vote. That's nearly 2 out of 3. They've alienated that. That's shameful. They're all waiting out there for someone to come along who they can vote for.
Well, if they're all waiting out there, why doesn't this country have a third party then?
Because the two parties are in control and won't allow it. You can't get in the debates. They controlled, the last time they allowed was Ross Perot. Ross Perot ended up getting 20% of the vote in '92. He ran again in '96. Clinton and Dole made a deal. Dole wanted Perot out of the debates because he felt it would detract from his conservative stance. Clinton didn't want debates at all because he was so far in front. So those two cut a deal that there'd only be 2 debates that year and that they'd eliminate Perot. Now, why should the Democratic and Republican candidates have the right to eliminate anybody else from the debates, especially in the case of Perot, where the previous 4 years earlier he got 1 out of 5 votes? That's not good enough?
Again, you know, Jesse Ventura had to repeat himself numerous times in that interview, but let's look at this big picture. We need to have third parties. We need to have more choices. Americans need to have more choices. In the last election cycle in 2016, 46.9% of the U.S. population did not vote. Now, it could be for numerous reasons. One, probably because, no one liked Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. People just didn't care. People weren't motivated. And with the two choices that we have here now, good old Joe Biden and Donald Trump, I think more and more Americans are going to get sick and tired of hearing their names, seeing their attack ads, and all their scandals coming to light. This is not a healthy democracy. This is not a responsible democracy. We have a neoliberal system that tries to give us a choice of 2 different parties when at the end of the day, they're one and the same. So third parties, it is an option. It is a choice. But the thing is, like with everything, we have to fight for it. That means whatever the rules and regulations in your state, you need to find out what they are so that if you want to vote for a libertarian or vote for green or vote for whoever you want, you have to make sure that, one, you have enough ballot signatures, and also to make sure that, nothing gets thrown out so that they can be heard, and that possibly, maybe, you could see the rise of a third party in your state. At the federal level, let's talk about what it would mean for a general election. If the Greens and Libertarians were to successfully have a strong campaign, realistically, they're not going to win the presidency, but if they want to have a long-lasting impact, both parties would have to get at least 5% at the end of the general election, so they can be recognized as a legitimate party and then get federal funding. So on paper that sounds great, and it's a lot of work, and there's a whole system put in place, like I said before, that will stop third parties from attaining this. So I believe in third parties. I believe that we should have a parliamentary system, but there's also a bigger issue too, and that is we have to change the way we run elections. We have to get money out of politics. We have to make sure we have election integrity, because third parties can be co-opted. Third parties can be taken over. And knowing our neoliberal system, you know, we can go from a two-party system to then to a four-party or six-party system, and then we are stuck with the same thing. So it's going to be an uphill fight, but it can be done. But this is fantastic news that we're actually hearing this from Jesse Ventura, because Jesse Ventura has a long history of talking about third parties and why we need to get money out of politics and why we need to have true election integrity. And I'm curious to see if he will actually follow through and maybe run. If he does, maybe it's potentially enough momentum for him to gain enough following, and maybe the Greens could get that 5%. Possibly. It's not going to be easy, but if we want to have a true democracy, people have to step up and demand it. You're not going to get it from Congress. You're not going to get it from the Democrats or the Republicans, because they don't care. And seeing our two choices with Donald Trump and Joe Biden, two individuals who have been on the wrong side of history, two individuals that have questionable past activities, two individuals that have numerous women accusing them of sexual assault, abuse, rape, harassment. I think it's long overdue that we change this system and actually have a true democracy. So I want to open up this discussion and get your thoughts on this. What do you think about third parties? How can we get to this point where we can have a true parliamentary system? And what else needs to be done so that we can make sure there's election integrity? I'm really interested to find out what your thoughts are. This is Kit Cabell with Hard Lens Media, and this is Perspectives. Peace, everyone.